think times have changed without a doubt, and I think we have more to talk about in the way of wrestling fans and conversations, and I think conversations are really blowing up on social media. Everybody is talking about the probability and possibility of AJ Styles being champion, eventually seeing Sami Zayn, even Apollo Crews. They're even talking about the tag team division with other things of changing. Enzo and Kaz showing up in the tag team tournament the way they have. Of course, we've seen Gallows and Anderson showing up, one of the most promising teams to come out of Japan. Of course, Gallows, formerly of the Straight Edge Society, a run-in buddy and a friend of CM Punk. He went to Japan, made a name for himself, now he's back. We've seen Maurice and Miz change the Intercontinental Championship division the way they have. Ric Flair and Charlotte with the new Women's Championship, carrying that so proudly. Of course, Charlotte coming out with the Ric Flair robe from WrestleMania 24 when Ric Flair retired, wearing the blue attire. Everything seems to have changed more promisingly in WWE, and it all goes back to how Triple H has finally been taken off TV. This is what I've been preaching about, really shoving in your faces, how things had to change. The authority had to go, and finally now with the authority gone, we're seeing more opportunities being given to wrestlers rather than just seeing them scratch the surface of what they could have possibly been. If Triple H comes back on television, I'm hoping he keeps the ideas instilled in their minds that Shane McMahon will leave us with, even if Shane McMahon doesn't take over full time as the Raw general manager. But I'm seeing somewhat of a storyline being created between Triple H and Shane McMahon, even Stephanie being thrown in there from everything that Shane McMahon has done ever since being challenged by The Undertaker at WrestleMania 32, which again was an incredible match. Seeing Shane McMahon put his body on the line in ways we have never seen Shane put his body on the line before really told me a lot of how he wanted to be a part of this business after having been gone from it 6 or 7 years. He came back in an incredible fashion, in an incredible way, and people just happened to shut up talking about Shane McMahon after one of the biggest reactions we have ever seen off a return, probably even bigger than The Rock's return from 4 or 5 years ago back in 2011. The Rock's return was nothing far off electric and incredible. But Shane McMahon's return really blew that out of the park. I think the reaction Shane got was something he didn't even expect to get, and he's still getting these amazing reactions from fans from the decisions he's making as the Raw general manager. He's really playing up to the fans and winning them over. He's won the hearts of every wrestling fan out there who are some of the smartest people in the world. And let me say this, if we're up to you guys, Shane McMahon would be the owner of WWE, and people like Triple H and Stephanie would have been long gone, and we would never be hearing conversations about Stephanie and Triple H and how they're going to factor in out of these storylines, which obviously is what's going to be the derivement of everything happening in the fall of the WrestleMania 32, because what's left for someone like Triple H to do? He's not going to challenge Roman Reigns anymore for the championship. I think Triple H and Reigns are done now. Even though we still have a chance of probably seeing one more match between Triple H and Roman Reigns, I think they're pretty much done, at least for now. So what's left for Triple H and Stephanie to do? Other than that, the only thing left for them to do is to come back. If they're not going to challenge Roman Reigns, to come back and challenge Shane McMahon for control of Monday Night Raw, because when you run Monday Night Raw, you're basically running the entire WWE. So I think the storyline obviously is what's hyping up here and probably will become the climax of everything happening by at least SummerSlam, and we'll see something happening between Shane, Triple H, and Stephanie as they battle for control and supremacy in WWE, just as we've seen Triple H, Reigns, and Vince McMahon and everything happening the way it has ever since the end of 2015 last year. So at least now we have something promising to look forward to, and along with that, everything changing and deservingly so, which is something I was hoping to get to. I wanted to see more of an opportunity rather than the same 4 or 5 champions, the same 4 or 5 contenders for whatever division you're talking about. And at least now we have different champions and we have different contenders and something worth talking about, something we probably would have never seen happen if people like Triple H would have continued to run the show the way that they were. Now, off of TV, yeah, Triple H is still the acting COO, just as Stephanie is the acting principal owner, one of them, of WWE, but at least with them gone now, at least for the next few months, which is what I see happening for Triple H and Stephanie being given time off. We needed this as wrestling fans, because we have more of a reason to want to turn the product off than to continue watching the product, because we didn't have anything to talk about, we didn't have anything to be excited about. And at least now with Triple H gone and no longer being champion, and people like Roman Reigns as champion, even though I was not the biggest Roman Reigns fan, at least this is something for us all to get into, even if it is only 3 or 4 months that we see Reigns as champion. Yeah, we could still see people like Brock Lesnar and John Cena showing up and challenging Roman Reigns, which will make you feel like it's the same thing we've seen for the better part of the last 4 or 5 years. But even if it came down to Cena and Reigns for the championship, wouldn't you much rather see that than Triple H and Reigns 2 or 3 more times down the road, or even Seth Rollins coming back and challenging Roman Reigns? Because we've seen the same kind of thing, and we're going to find ourselves falling asleep if it comes down to Reigns and Rollins for the championship, which could happen in the return of Seth Rollins. But I'd much rather see something like Triple H and Seth Rollins, which brings me back to Triple H's return. You don't honestly think we've seen the last of someone like Triple H, do you? When matches like Seth Rollins and Triple H have been the talk of professional wrestling and what everything seems to have been revolving around for the better part of the last 4 or 5 months, that comparison between Triple H and Seth Rollins has been made enough to make me believe that we will see Seth Rollins and Triple H for that championship, even if Triple H regains the title at some point from Roman Reigns, which I hope doesn't happen, and we just see Triple H and Seth Rollins with no significance at all, because I think that things like Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns is something different. And yeah, we've probably seen it before, but have we ever seen it revolving around the championship and Bray Wyatt having a desire to be number one and be champion for the first time? This is something I believe should have happened by October of 2013, a difference of 3 years ago, and I think it's really happening too late. If this is what all this is hyping up and building towards, Bray Wyatt becoming champion and being the leader of a cult and being the leader of all these fireflies with the cell phones lighting up. Obviously, what happened at WrestleMania with the Wyatt family coming out and getting the better of The Rock, or trying to get the better of The Rock, was to push the Wyatt family in a more promising direction. And after seeing Raw this past Monday, it leads me to believe that Bray Wyatt has more of a chance of challenging for the championship, even if he doesn't win the title, and changing the complexity of WWE in a way that he never has before. Yeah, he's been a big factor in matches like Money in the Bank and Royal Rumble matches before in the past, but he's never been given this much more of an opportunity to stand out. And again, it all falls back on Shane taking control of Raw and taking away people like Triple H and Stephanie, who obviously didn't have enough confidence in people like Reigns, Apollo Crews, and Sami Zayn to be in the main events. At least Shane McMahon, giving us an opportunity and giving us something worth talking about and to remember as wrestling fans. Obviously, times have changed. That's something Vince McMahon's been saying for forever now, and with the times changing, we as wrestling fans have to accept that times are changing. Yeah, we tried to accept it with Triple H as a COO and Stephanie going public as principal owners of WWE, but they couldn't get the job done. The ratings were at all-time lows. They were breaking records with all-time low ratings, and after the highest attendance record ever of over 100,000 fans at WrestleMania 32, do you want to see the same thing reiterated? No, it's time to change things up and give more opportunities to people like Zayn and Crews that would have never been given to them if they hadn't set that record at WrestleMania 32. So with that incredible record of over 100,000 fans, something like 100,738 fans or something like that, at WrestleMania 32, things had to change. More opportunities had to come the way of wrestlers, and it would have never happened if people like Triple H and Stephanie would have continued running the show the way that they were. People were rating WrestleMania prior to WrestleMania in the pre-shows 2 out of 10 stars or 2 out of 5 stars. They weren't giving WrestleMania 32 much promise or hope because it was the worst WrestleMania card in at least the last 10 years. I know Bret Hart wasn't the biggest fan of this year's WrestleMania card, with matches like Shane McMahon and The Undertaker headlining the show, and this match was so incredible. The thing was, people came down so hard on The Undertaker and Shane McMahon, but that match was that good, it could have closed WrestleMania 32, and they could have got away with that match closing WrestleMania 32, because that match really lived up to the hype and beyond the hype and expectations of everybody who was reviewing this match so critically. And I will be honest with you, I was one of those critics. I was one of those guys who was not giving the benefit of the doubt to The Undertaker and Shane McMahon. Who out there was going to blame me for not giving The Undertaker and Shane McMahon the benefit of the doubt? Out of all the matches and opponents you could have for The Undertaker, Shane McMahon was the best you had, and this is why we're seriously doubting the future of The Undertaker. But now with all these promising young talents like Apollo Crews and Sami Zayn coming into the business, and the chance of seeing The Undertaker versus Roman Reigns eventually to retire The Undertaker, I think The Undertaker has more of a chance now and reason to keep showing up at events like WrestleMania and SummerSlam and to create with wrestlers he's never had the chance to create with before. There still is that match also with The Undertaker and Sheamus, which was a big rumor for years, although we probably have a better chance of seeing Reigns and The Undertaker ever before we do The Undertaker and Sheamus. But the thing is, I think The Undertaker now has more of a reason to keep showing up in wrestling and creating with wrestlers, and he wouldn't have had that opportunity if people like Triple H and Stephanie would have continued running the show, and we probably wouldn't even be seeing all these legends showing up with Triple H running the show. Yeah, when Triple H first took over, we saw legends like Shawn Michaels, Shawn Waltman, Road Dogg, and Billy Gunn, DX, and all these legends we wouldn't expect to see returning and showing up all the time. We even had a brief stand there by Jim Ross as the commentator on Monday Night Raw, but they had to do that. They had to get us used to Triple H running the show. Once we got used to Triple H running the show, here comes Michael Cole calling Raw as the lead voice again, and we saw the same kind of thing reiterated with John Cena always winning the championship, people like Randy Orton always being the favorite of Triple H, and we got very tired of that. And as a result of that, ratings hit all-time lows. They were breaking records in ways they didn't want to be breaking records. And off this incredible attendance record at WrestleMania 32, you kind of got to question, is this really what you want to see in the way of the future for WWE? I don't want to see that. I want to see more opportunities being given in the way of Sami Zayn's and Apollo Crews's, because without that, It's the same pathetic thing being reiterated all the time, and as wrestling fans, being some of the smartest people in the world, you got to feel really insulted. You know, Triple H is really insulting your intelligence, and that's something I don't want to see for you guys, because you are some of the smartest people in the world. And what it comes down to is you're never given enough credit, because without that credit, it goes without recognition, and the same thing is being thrown in our faces, and they're telling us, you know, who to like and what to accept. And at the end of the day, when the dust is settled and the smoke is cleared, ladies and gentlemen, is this really what you want to accept? If the times are changing, we as fans have to change with the times, and we have to let our voices be heard, and that's what the internet has allowed us to do. And that's why people like Triple H and Stephanie have come away from everything we've said so annoyed. I know I've really annoyed Triple H more than once with my thoughts and opinions towards him, which is why I couldn't be more happy that he's gone, and I hope things stay the way they have, all in the fallout revolving around what happened at WrestleMania 32. They knew going into WrestleMania 32 that the times were changing, and at least now they're putting it all into fruition, and it all revolves around these ridiculous decisions Triple H and Stephanie have made to better themselves and not wrestling fans. And at least now with Shane McMahon in control of Monday Night Raw and the entire WWE basically, at least things are changing and changing for the better. Conversation is at an all-time high, and I'm really excited to see what the future has in store for every person who ever admitted to being a wrestling fan. And you obviously now have more of a reason to be a fan of wrestling than you ever have had before. And I couldn't be more excited when talking about the future of the entire WWE, and it all revolves around Shane McMahon finally taking control of WWE, the heir to the throne, and finally sitting on the throne, and deservingly so. I'm your host, Jonathan Clarke, and I will talk to you again next week. Like what you hear? Tell us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.